Hey everyone, this is Hannah with the Rocket Miner giving you today's news update. To start off, I just wanted to say good job to everyone who went out to vote for the Wyoming primary election. The results are in and official, and all the ballots have been counted. And this election saw the highest voter turnout in the state for a primary in a presidential election year, which is awesome that it had such a good turnout. So the Secretary of State's office reported that a total of 140,042 ballots were cast in the 2020 Wyoming primary election. They said that the last primary election that surpassed this number was the 1994 midterm election. The ballots that were cast at the polls on primary election day, which was August 18th, or by in-person absentee, totaled 86,441, which was 62% of the total. And then the rest of the ballots that were cast were absentee by mail. So yeah, just good job to everyone who turned out to vote or sent in your ballots through the mail, did absentee, however you participated. It's awesome that we had such record numbers of people participating for the primary election, and definitely want to see even more for the upcoming election. I also today wanted to let everybody know that the Sweetwater County Community Nursing Service is going to be offering several drive-thru flu clinics in the next couple of months, and that right now they're looking for volunteers to help with those clinics and emergency preparedness exercises. The Sweetwater County public health officials noted that drive-thru clinics are an easy and convenient way to get vaccinated for the flu while also maintaining social distancing and taking precautions during the COVID-19 pandemic. So there are going to be 2 clinics out at the Sweetwater Events Complex, one in September and one in October, and there will be one in Green River in the parking lot of the Golden Hour Senior Center. So you can get more details on the dates and the times for those on rocketminer.com, and of course we'll let people know as it gets closer. But for right now, I wanted to remind everyone, since they are looking for volunteers for that, they need volunteers to help with the clinics and office immunization clinics and emergency preparedness exercises, so several different things that they're looking for volunteers for. So if you want to get involved with that, they would definitely appreciate your help. We have more details on who you need to get a hold of to get more information about that on rocketminer.com if you're interested. So yesterday, the Wyoming Department of Health announced and reported that they are extending Wyoming's current public health orders and not making any changes to them. So these are the public health orders for COVID-19 that we've been under for a while now. They've been extended once again. Now they'll go through September 15th, at which point, of course, they'll reevaluate and see whether they can change them or if they need to extend them again. So some details of those public health orders and what they allow. They do allow outdoor gatherings of no more than 50% of a venue's capacity, with a maximum of 1,000 people, as long as social distancing and increased sanitization measures are in place. As far as indoor gatherings in a confined space, those remain limited to 50 persons without restrictions, or 250 persons if social distancing and increased sanitization are incorporated. As far as the restrictions and orders that apply to restaurants, bars, gyms, performance spaces, personal care services, all of those are staying the same place that they've been. And also staying is the requirement that students in schools wear face coverings in situations where they can't be 6 feet apart. There are specific exemptions that are listed in the orders. But again, these are the same orders that we've been under for a while. I think it was the last time they extended them. They made a few changes with some of the rules for gatherings, especially outdoor gatherings. But for now, for this time, it's the same. There are no changes. It's staying where it was before. And obviously they have decided to extend this because of where we're at with COVID in Wyoming, where the numbers are at, and as far as like the dashboard metrics that they go by to look at and make these decisions. Some of those categories are still listed as concerning. I'm pretty sure it's the new cases and the number of hospitalizations are both listed as concerning right now still. So that's why they made this decision to once again extend these orders. They also reported that over the past 14 days, Wyoming has averaged 35 lab-confirmed cases of COVID-19 per day, compared to the average of 27 cases per day for the period of July 30th through August 12th. So that number of new cases per day has been increasing in the past 2 weeks or so. As far as our specific numbers for today go, right now we have 3,196 confirmed cases with 567 probable. We are up to 3,086 recoveries, which is great that recovery number is almost keeping pace with the number of new cases. But today we do have 640 active cases in the state. This is an increase of 15 as far as active cases go since yesterday, which was an increase of 6 since Wednesday. So for a few days, the active case number had been starting to go down again, and now just over the last couple of days, it's starting to go back up. Obviously, being at 640, that's really high. That's one of the highest that I've seen as far as active case on any given day. And lately this number has been kind of bouncing around and going up and down quite a bit. But as I said, just over the last few days, we've seen it start going up again, which is not great. So those are the biggest updates that I wanted to give you for today. But I also wanted to take a little bit of time to give some of my thoughts and weigh in on some discussions that I've seen happening surrounding some of our stories, some of our coverage. I am the social media manager for the Rocket, so obviously I see all of the comments, especially on social media, and the discussions that people have there. And usually I try to not engage too much. I think it's important for people to be able to comment. I appreciate people interacting with our stories and offering their opinions, definitely. But I usually just try to let people share their opinions and not get into arguments or weigh in too much. But I've seen a few ideas that have been coming up more often recently that are all kind of connected in some things that people are asking or people are commenting about the newspaper. So I just wanted to give a few thoughts and kind of weigh in on that discussion and give some of my personal opinions and my reaction to some of those questions. And I know that Caleb in his update video yesterday also touched on some of these things a little bit, so there might be some overlap in what I say with things that he talked about. You should definitely go watch his video too if you haven't. But I just wanted to give some of the thoughts that have been in my head in regards to some of these things. So more specifically, two of the things I've seen coming up a lot recently are people asking about our coverage of COVID-19 as a whole, kind of the way that we handle COVID news and talk about the numbers and our response to that. And then also, I've seen a lot of people making comments on a lot of our stories and posts that we've shared recently about the Rocket Miner and its bias or its slant or what side it takes on certain issues. Specifically seen a lot of people saying that they feel like the Rocket Miner is becoming more liberal and is just taking the liberal side of stories and issues. So I just wanted to respond to some of those concepts. I think as far as COVID-19 goes, obviously the Rocket Miner has had pretty extensive coverage of COVID-19, especially if you watch our videos, if you watch the videos I make, you know that every time I do a video, I go over that day's COVID-19 numbers for the state. And some people are wondering, like, why are we still talking about this? Why do we need to go over the numbers all the time? why does it matter if there were cases linked to this certain event that happened? Like, why are we still talking about this? And I know that for me personally, and I think that also for some other members of our staff here, we would say that we believe COVID is still a problem. It does exist. It is a real threat that we are facing in our country and in our state. And we need to be informed and we need to be aware of what's happening and developments with it, because that influences things that are happening and influences decisions that we make as groups, as communities, and as individuals. I think that Wyoming has been privileged and that we are doing good compared to a lot of states. Our numbers have been lower. It hasn't affected us as much. We've had more freedom and ability to do things, which is great. But I do think that this pandemic is still a problem. It is still affecting us. It is still something that we need to keep in mind and we need to be careful about, because it can be a matter of life and death for some people, and it is something that we need to let impact our actions and the choices that we make. And I think it's good to just be aware of the numbers, be aware of the cases, be aware of what's going on with it, because that influences our decisions. Also, I wanted to say that as a newspaper, we're trying to report the news, we're trying to report where things are at, what's going on with things, and especially when it comes to COVID, when we report things, we're not trying to shame anybody or target or attack any specific groups. This week we had a story on our Facebook about churches in Wyoming and how there were COVID cases related to 2 different churches in Fremont County and some activities they did recently. And some people on Facebook got a little bit upset about that and about us reporting that. But I want to be clear that when we do that, we're not trying to target these churches or to attack churches in a general sense. A lot of Rocket Miner staff members go to church on a regular basis. We understand the difficulty that churches have had over the last few months in figuring out how to worship and what to do and decisions to make and how to approach things. So it's not because we're attacking churches and focusing on them instead of focusing on other groups. If we have stories and reports about COVID outbreaks related to other groups, we'll share those as well. It's not about the specific group that it's coming from. It's just that this is happening, so we try to share updates and information so people can be informed. But with that, we do just want to keep covering COVID, and some people might say that talking about COVID or the COVID numbers is liberal or somehow makes us liberal. I don't think that's true. I don't agree with that. I don't think the pandemic is something that should be as politicized as it has become. But with that, we are just trying to share information and help people make informed decisions based on the information and what's happening. With that, that connects to this concept of whether or not the Rocket Miner is becoming a liberal newspaper, or if we are liberal, or what that means. And there's a lot of different ideas in the philosophies behind newspapers and media and slants and biases. But when it comes down to it, kind of the bottom line for me that I try to keep in mind is that a newspaper as an entity, as its own thing, should be impartial, should be a way to inform people of what's happening and to give a platform to multiple voices and multiple perspectives. That is the goal, and that is the main ideal for a newspaper. But obviously newspapers are run by human beings, and human beings have a wide variety of opinions. We all have our own biases, we all have our own slants. That's part of being human. So the goal for a newspaper is to have that variety. And yes, things are being run by humans, so even individual stories will be impacted by the author of that story and by their own views and beliefs. But as a newspaper, we try to give a balanced perspective and give multiple viewpoints. I think one thing to keep in mind especially is that opinion pieces and columns are exactly what they are say they are. They are opinions. They are a platform for people to share their opinions and what they think. One of the reasons this has come up recently is because we shared a personal column by one of our reporters, and it was about the Electoral College. And I know Caleb talked more about this yesterday, but that got a lot of response. And a lot of people were kind of saying how, oh, this proves that the Rocket Miner is a liberal newspaper because of this liberal column. But I would argue that one column doesn't sum up what the newspaper is or what it believes or what it stands for. A column and an opinion is the opinion of the person who wrote it. It doesn't reflect the opinion of everybody else at the newspaper. I know we have a wide variety of opinions among the people here. And then we also share columns and stories by other people. We share some Associated Press stories, some Wyoming News Exchange stories from other Wyoming newspapers. So there are a lot of different voices and a lot of different perspectives. And we do try to share a balance and an assortment of different ideas. We have a lot of very conservative columnists that we run regularly. So we do try to have just multiple perspectives, and I would encourage people to not make your assumptions about the Rocket Miner or everything that everyone here believes based on one column or one story that you read. Try to look at it as a whole and see some of the other perspectives that we have. And I think that that's just the thing to keep in mind in general. As I said, at the Rocket Miner, the goal for the newspaper is to keep people informed and to share multiple viewpoints and perspectives and to have a balance. So that's what we're trying. Obviously, individual things, like I said, we're all people. We all have our own opinions. So individual things might seem to have more of a slant or bias to them, but try to look at the newspaper as a whole as we try to share multiple sides of any given issue. So I just wanted to give those thoughts. Those are some of my thoughts and opinions on discussions that have been happening. So thank you for listening to that, and just encourage you to keep checking with us for more news and updates. Have a good night.